Hi, I'm Paul Berg. I'm going to pretty much do this as a question and answer session, but we're sort of all in luck. One thing you should write down to give to your CPA if you're interested in chartering is client versus commissioner. A key ruling just came down in August from the tax court, which lays out in 28 pages, which you can look up on the internet, and believe it or not, it's almost in layman's language. Actually, it is in layman's language. The IRS fought this one person, this person won, and the court laid out every single argument. Basically, if you're going to charter a boat under the charter rule, well, first, let's talk about basically a boat charter. You have to spend more than 100 hours a year, and it should be documented very, very good, because the agent doesn't like you. They don't like people who rent yachts, get boats, yachts and airplanes. So they're going to look at everything with a very jaundiced eye. And what a lot of people forget in the charter business, no one can spend more time managing that boat than you do. For example, if Jack was managing your boat and he was the only one managing the boat, and you spent 110 hours, and he spent 200 hours managing it, you have no deduction because someone worked on that boat more. Usually it's not a problem. What ended up happening, the way the court allowed it, this person chartered his boat through a company called Horizon, actually two boats. And they spent about 300, 400 hours on his boats. And so the IRS said, if someone spent more than 100 hours, it turns out they had a number of employees. Not any one of that employees spent more than 100 hours fixing the boat on charter. That's where the IRS was catching a lot of people. So the first thing is, you want to treat it like a business. You want to use it as little as possible, because the more you use it, the less it looks like a business. Practically, I would tell my clients, go into a LLC for two reasons. One, limit your liability. And two, it just looks more business-like. If your return is dirty, other than that, I probably wouldn't think about chartering. Because when they come in and audit you on chartering, as long as they're in the neighborhood, they're going to check everything else out. But basically, you can, if you have a real charter, you're going to be able to deduct your interest, your expenses, depreciation. And remember, if you, let's say, charter the boat for 4 or 5 years and then sell it, you're going to recapture all of that depreciation as ordinary income. The people who chartered their boats 5 and 6 years ago and all of a sudden sold it last year, all of a sudden they're in a higher tax bracket because the Medicare tax was added onto it. The likelihood of our taxes going up or down, I'm not even going to talk about, but there is that potential. But the basic thing is you have to treat it like a business. Let me sort of run through what this person did. This person was a pilot with Southwest Airlines. He retired. He bought 2 catamarans in the Caribbean, one called Flyaway and one called Fly Me. He spent a lot of time marketing to Southwest, had all of his documents, had all of his emails, saved everything, and he spent 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there, did everything right. He self-chartered one or both of the boats a couple times, and had, I think it was a 4-bedroom boat, had approximately 8 people on it. They split the expenses. He charged a 10% override. And the court said, well, as long as he was always making money, it was legitimate. The IRS said that. He used it. And he said, well, what he did, he became the manager of the boat for that particular period of time, and that counted in his 100 hours. basically, some of the other ways you could do it, if you were really worried, you could treat it as a second home. And there was a case a long time ago. It used to be if you bought a home and sold it, you could move your sales price into another home. That's no longer the case. But at that time, someone bought in fact, it was a client of mine, had a condo, sold it, bought a boat somewhere back in Missouri, a big boat, and lived on it. And we had an audit, and we were able to show that this was his home. So there are a number of cases where a boat can be a home. If that's the case, you get to deduct your interest and your property taxes. And if you ever do sell it, you don't have to recapture depreciation because you never depreciate it. Something to think about. So if your return is clean, and you're going to really treat this as a business, and you're going to spend at least 100 hours, let me back up a little. One of, on the internet, one of the charter companies or trade groups said one way to get to 100 hours is to go to Annapolis and spend 40 or 50 hours looking at boats. That's BS. I mean, you know, the IRS agent is going to say, right. This person who chartered his boat actually spent, as it turned out, he was able to prove 347 hours. He had everything locked down. And the agents really went through it. They did things such as when he said he spent X amount of time, they made sure he was in town X amount of time. They're really going to go after you. But he treated it as a business. I do not know if he ever sold the boat because that didn't come up in his thing. Do you people have any questions?
Did he have his captain's license?
Yes, he did. No, yes, he did. He had a captain's license, but that wasn't part of that. That really didn't come up. It just came up. He did have a captain's license, but what he had done 2 or 3 times, he had chartered the boat to himself, took eight other people, and he charged a markup of 10% on all of their expenses, and he did money, had all the receipts. This guy was anal retentive. I mean, he did everything his CPA would have wanted him to do.
So where's the rule that you have to make money 3 out of 5 years?
That's a whole different thing. Then you're talking about hobby losses. You don't have to make money. You have to be able to have a reasonable chance of making money. Obviously, if you're going out and buying horses, you have a major problem. With boats, a lot of charter boats do make money, and if you have a good business plan, and I'm not talking about coming up with a business plan 3 years down the line when the IRS audits you, having a business plan in advance, everything written out. If you're interested in doing this, I would recommend that you look up this particular case, 28 pages, and if you're going to spend that much money, you can spend an hour reading the 28 pages. It's going to be worth a lot more than my speech. I mean, it absolutely laid it out. I was researching for about 40 hours, and all of a sudden this thing came up. I said, wow, everything is in there. Yeah.
You mentioned about either spending 100 hours or more than anyone else. If you don't meet those two, can you still use this as passive income and passive losses?
Okay, then you're starting to get into the real estate area. If it is allowable, the most it's allowable is 25,000 loss. This is different than charter. And if you earn over 100,000, for every dollar you earn over 100,000, you lose 50 cents of that loss. So if you earn 150,000, the passive loss is gone. I mean, it will carry over if and when you ever sell that piece of property. That boat becomes, it doesn't become a boat, it now becomes I have a condo up in Mammoth, it becomes a condo. I think what someone mentioned, having a boat to use as a condo on the water, that seems to be a really great idea. I had never heard of that before, although a number of people in our club I don't think their boat has ever been moved. I mean, they come down on Friday, they go to the jazz concert, and they, go to their boat, and they leave Sunday. It's their condo on the water. And I guess with the price of diesel, I mean, we sailors don't have that problem. I've spent $11 in 4 years on diesel. When I talk to my powerboat friends and tell them that, they start throwing things at me. But that's a very interesting concept. What Airbub is going to do, because I know Airbub is causing tremendous problems in Los Angeles and Santa Monica, I'm sure someone has thought about renting out their condo on the water, so to speak, to Airbub. It'd be interesting to see what the marinas do. I talked to our club, and they said no one in our club is going to charter a boat on our premises. You can belong, I mean, the boat can be on someone else's premises. We don't care. So if you belong to a yacht club and your boat is on a yacht club dock, you probably should ask for the condo.
What was the case? Klein versus?
Klein versus Commissioner. It was came down August 5th, 2015. It's a beautiful case. Now what you're doing with the business office, that's interesting. That basically, you're converting it from a boat to a piece of property. I'm not sure if the economics make sense, but I see no reason not to do it, although the IRS might come in and say, hey, are you really using it as an office? One of the problems you're all going to have is CPAs and road agents, whoever prepares a return. You're going to have to convince them, because if you lose, they're going to be hit. And, so if you're doing something that's really not too kosher, they're not going to let you do it, because he's not going to lose his license because of you. That pretty much changed about 7 or 8 years ago, where now your tax preparer pretty much has to certify that he has looked over your stuff and it is prepared properly. So your first hurdle is going to be your own tax practitioner. Yeah.
So if you have own a boat with a spouse, does the 100 hours, can it go between the two of you, or does it have to be one person?
I think it has to be one person. This seemed to say one person. All the laws seem to say is one person.
So if you set it up as then, like, say, an LLC with a 50-50 ownership, would that possibly...
Well, let's put it this way. If you worked on it 80 hours and your wife worked on it 30 hours, it might cause a problem. I don't know. I would make sure that you worked on it 110 and your wife worked on it 20. One thing the court did say is that one thing that impressed them was this person had a calendar, and boom, 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 boom. Most of your IRS agents, if they're auditing you, their job really is not to get money, believe it or not. Their job is to close cases properly. They want to have documentation so that they can go to their supervisor and say, hey, here's the issue, it came up, here's what the client said, and here's the cases that he talked about, and they want to close it. But if they think you're trying to screw them over, you have a problem, because not only are you going to be hit for the year under audit, you're going to be hit for every year that they can reach. So you're not talking about typically 1 year, you're talking about 3 or 4 years. And then the state is going to come after you. And you have negligence penalties. So if you're going to do it, it pays to do it right. If you have a very clean return, it looks like this retired pilot from Southwest had a very clean return, and he did everything right. Any more questions?
What's the current 179 expense? The current section?
I think section 179 is up to 500,000.
It came down, I think.
Oh, it came down, so maybe it's
it's
200,000, but
Still at 500?
It was down when it went back up.
Okay.
it would throw up a
this year,
huge, monstrous loss.
I think 90% sure.
my strategy might be to say, okay, in 2016, my return is going to be pure as virgin snow. And I'm going to take this huge loss, I'm going to do it all, take my section 179 depreciation, keep my fingers crossed, and if they audit me, the worst that can happen is that they throw it out, but there's nothing else on my return that they can throw out. And once you take that section 179 depreciation, section 179 depreciation allows you to take more than your 10-year depreciation. You can take up to, I guess now it's $200,000. So it's a $200,000 boat. You'd write the whole boat off in 1 year, and every year thereafter, you'd be showing a profit because you have no depreciation. But I would make very, very sure that that year is really clean.
I checked on 179 this week, and I was told by my accountant, it's 25,000. What they've been doing at the end of the year, increasing it.
Right.
And there's speculation with the new seat of the house that might not happen this year because of the changes going on.
Right. A lot of things happen at the very end of the year. A lot of things will happen in January, which are retroactive.
So much for planning.
Yeah, right. It really drives CPAs crazy. We used to go out of our mind because our business, almost all of my clients were doctors who had fairly large tax problems. And we used to go crazy because you couldn't plan. You'd have to keep your fingers crossed. The one thing you don't want to do is to produce a loss that stands a good chance of being thrown out because your accountant probably could have done something else in that particular year to solve your tax problems, for example, a pension plan. But because you decided to do this boat charter with a huge loss, you didn't do it. But I think what you're doing is rather clever.
Creative.
Well, it basically is saying, okay, I have an office that happens to float, and there's nothing wrong with that. They're going to look at it harder.
Oh, sure. I document clients' appointments, because I'm there every day.
Yeah. I don't see a problem. It'd be fun defending that on audit. But, and I would really hound you to have really good documentation before I go in there. Any more questions? I'm wondering, if I can convince my wife I should go buy a larger boat. Gentlemen, it was fun.
Thank you, Paul. Well, that's it. Thank you all for coming, and we'll be around if anyone wants to chit chat. We have some food over here also. Thank you.
Thank you.